Imagine spending $1 lakh on a symbol of absolute success, only to have it turn into a high-tech paperweight in your driveway while the manufacturer ignores your calls. We aren't talking about a budget subcompact or a risky startup. We're talking about the three-pointed star. For decades, Mercedes-Benz was the best or nothing, a brand built on over-engineered tanks that could outlast their owners. But for thousands of people who bought into the dream of the modern C-Class, E-Class, and the flagship S-Class, that dream didn't just fade, it imploded. We're talking about engines that eat themselves from the inside out, suspension systems that collapse without warning, and electrical gremlins that cost more to fix than the car is actually worth. These aren't just minor inconveniences, these are the mechanical betrayals that forced lifelong enthusiasts to walk away from the brand forever. One single design flaw turned a status symbol into a financial death sentence. And the worst part, most owners never saw it coming until the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree and the repair bill arrived with 5 figures on it. To understand the scale of this disaster, you have to understand what a Mercedes-Benz used to represent. In the 80s and 90s, if you bought an E-Class, you weren't just buying a car, you were buying a 30-year contract of reliability. Mechanics called them the million-mile cars. When the newer generations like the W25 C-Class, the W2 E-Class, and the X253 GLC hit the market, the hype was astronomical. On paper, these were the most advanced vehicles ever created. They promised intelligent drive, interiors that looked like private jets, and engines that balanced massive power with fuel efficiency. The marketing told us that Mercedes had finally perfected the marriage of cutting-edge tech and traditional German durability. If you were a buyer in 2015 or 2018, you felt safe. You believed that the premium price tag was an insurance policy against the headaches of lesser brands. You were told that a Mercedes-Benz E350 was the sensible choice for a professional, a car that reflected your status while providing a rock-solid commuting experience. It was supposed to be the ultimate reward for your hard work. But this is where the story takes a dark turn. Beneath the hand-stitched leather and the ambient lighting, a series of engineering shortcuts were waiting like a ticking time bomb. The nightmare usually starts small. For many owners of the GLC and C-Class, it began with a strange sensation while turning the steering wheel at low speeds, a skipping or crabbing feeling. It felt like the tires were slipping on ice, even in bone-dry weather. Mercedes told owners it was normal for high-performance tires, but for a $50,000 luxury SUV, it felt broken. Then came the smells. Owners of the E350 started reporting a faint scent of fuel inside the cabin. It was subtle at first, easily dismissed as exhaust from the car in front of you, but it didn't go away. Soon, the check engine lights began to flicker. In the forums, the whispers started. It wasn't just one car, it was hundreds. Mechanics began seeing a pattern. The high-tech sensors designed to keep these cars efficient were failing at a rate that defied logic. A simple sensor failure would put the car into limp mode, stripping away all power and leaving drivers stranded on the highway. Owners who had spent decades driving Toyotas and Hondas without a single breakdown were suddenly becoming best friends with their local tow truck drivers. But these minor electrical glitches were just the smoke. The real fire was buried deep inside the engine block. And this wasn't the worst part. If there is one phrase that strikes fear into the heart of a modern Mercedes owner, it is piston cracking. The M274 and M270 engines, the turbocharged 4-cylinders found in the C300, E300, and GLC 300, were supposed to be the workhorses of the fleet. Instead, it became the brand's biggest liability, due to a combination of high-pressure direct injection and a design that couldn't handle the heat. The pistons in these engines began to literally shatter. Imagine you're driving down the freeway. The car feels perfect. Then, without any warning, there's a loud pop, a cloud of blue smoke, and your luxury sedan is suddenly a vibrating mess of metal. The piston has cracked, the cylinder has lost compression, and your engine is now a very expensive paperweight. The cause? Many experts point to low-speed pre-ignition or LSPI. The engine tries to do too much with too little displacement, creating massive internal pressures that the components simply weren't built to withstand. When this happens, you don't repair the engine, you replace it. And then there's the AirMatic suspension. On the S-Class and E-Class, this system is supposed to make you feel like you're floating on a cloud. But when the airbags leak, and they will leak, the car sags to the ground. You'll walk out to your garage in the morning to find your $90,000 flagship sitting on its frame, looking like a broken lowrider. To fix it, you're looking at $2,000 to $5,000 per corner. If this failure happens once, it almost always comes back. These aren't on and done fixes, they are systemic design flaws that the replacement parts often don't actually solve. This is where ownership turns into pure regret. The moment your Mercedes-Benz goes out of warranty, you aren't just an owner, you're a gambler. Consider the E350 fuel leak issue. For years, owners were told it was a maintenance item or a non-issue, but the reality was a design flaw in the fuel tank and sender unit that could cost $3,000 to replace. For many, this was the moment the veil was lifted. The repair bills for these modern disasters are unlike anything in the automotive world. Because of how these cars are packaged, even a simple leak often requires dropping the entire engine or removing the dashboard. Labor costs alone can exceed the value of a 5-year-old C-Class. I've seen stories of owners who bought a used S-Class for $30,000, thinking they got a bargain, only to be hit with a $15,000 repair bill for the ABC's active body control system 6 months later. They couldn't afford to fix it, and they couldn't sell it because it didn't run. So they watched their dream car rot in the driveway while they continued to make payments on a bank loan for a car they couldn't drive. Many owners sold their cars at a massive loss just to escape the anxiety. He described a feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Every time a chime sounded or a light flashed on the dash, their heart skipped a beat. That isn't luxury. That's a hostage situation. And just when owners thought it couldn't get worse, they looked to the manufacturer for help and found a wall of silence. How does a brand like Mercedes-Benz respond when their flagship engines start exploding? Historically, the answer has been wait for the lawsuit. While there have been some recalls and extended warranties for specific components, like the 15-year warranty on some fuel tanks, many of the most catastrophic failures were met with case-by-case evaluations. This is corporate speak for. If you didn't do every single oil change at our dealership for $600 a pop, we aren't helping you. There have been class action lawsuits regarding the M274 engine failures and the crabbing steering issues. But for the average owner, these legal battles take years. By the time a settlement is reached, the car has usually been scrapped or sold to a junkyard. This is the ultimate betrayal of trust. Mercedes-Benz built its empire on the idea that they stood behind their engineering. But for the modern buyer, it feels like the brand has shifted its focus from engineering excellence to planned obsolescence. They build cars to last through a 3-year lease, and after that, you're on your own. It's a strategy that might work for the balance sheet in the short term, but it's killing the soul of the brand. If you are a used car buyer looking at a 2020 Mercedes-Benz because the price looks too good to pass up, listen closely. Do not do it. Affordable. Mercedes is the most expensive car you will ever own. Unless you have a $10,000 emergency fund specifically for car repairs, or you are a master mechanic with a professional-grade diagnostic computer, these cars are a trap. The E350's W2015 great cars until they aren't. If the service history isn't perfect, run the GLC and C-Class 7274 engine. Check for any history of piston 1 failure. If it hasn't been replaced with the updated part, you are driving a grenade. The S-Class, if you can't afford to buy it new, you definitely can't afford to maintain it used. The only person who survives owning these cars is the person who leases them brand new, keeps them under warranty, and hands the keys back the second the lease is up. They let the next guy deal with the collapse. Don't be the next guy. The tragedy of the modern Mercedes-Benz isn't that they are bad cars, it's that they are brilliant cars that were built with a fatal lack of integrity. When they work, they are the best in the world. The ride is sublime, the tech is magical, and the prestige is unmatched. But a car's primary job is to get you from point A to point B without bankrupting you. Mercedes forgot that. They traded their reputation for reliability for gadgets and perceived luxury. They bet that people would care more about the size of the screen on the dashboard than the strength of the pistons in the engine. The lesson here is simple. Brand loyalty is a luxury you cannot afford. Just because a company made great cars 30 years ago doesn't mean they are making them today. In the modern era, the three-pointed star has become a warning sign for many. Expectations vs. reality. The reality is that the best or nothing often ends up being nothing when you're standing on the side of the road waiting for a tow. Now, I want to hear from you. This is a controversial topic because there are still millions of people who swear by their Mercedes. Have you ever owned one of these models and had a nightmare experience? Or has your Mercedes been the most reliable car you've ever owned? Are we being too hard on the brand, or is it time they were held accountable for these engineering failures? Drop a comment below with your horror stories or your success stories, because your experience might save someone else from making a $40,000 mistake. If you want more deep dives into the car disasters that the manufacturers want to keep quiet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We tell the stories that others are too afraid to touch.